Nepal is on edge. Let's take a deep dive. Namaskar, you're watching the Global Eye with me, Masmi. Nepal erupted in a wave of youth led outrage after the government ordered the blocking of 26 social media and messaging platforms. What began as a fight over information access quickly morphed into a broader rebellion against entrenched privilege, corruption, and a shrinking civic space, and turned deadly when security forces confronted demonstrators outside the parliament. At least 19 protesters are reported dead and hundreds wounded in clashes that shocked a nation. What the government did, the law, the order, and the deadline. The Ministry of Communications and Information Technology enforced a directive under the Directive for Regulating the Use of Social Media 2080-2080, which required platforms operating in Nepal to register locally, set up an office, and appoint compliance officers. Platforms that failed to comply were ordered to be blocked by the Nepal Telecommunications Authority. Now, officials justified the measure as a sovereignty and safety step to fight misinformation, hate speech, and online crime. But critics call it a shortcut to censorship, bypassing dialogue and due process. Now, let's see which platforms were affected. The ban targeted 26 apps, including global giants like Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, X, formerly known as Twitter, YouTube, Reddit, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Discord, Signal, Threads, Pinterest, and others. TikTok and Viber reportedly complied earlier and remained accessible. They are from China. Now let's look at the timeline, how the policy became a national crisis. The government issued a one-week deadline for registration and compliance. Platforms that failed to meet the requirements were blocked by internet service providers. Gen Z users, who had already been using platforms to expose alleged corruption and nepotism, organized mass protests. And the demonstrators marched toward parliament in Kathmandu and other cities. See the determination, the power, the rival mindset of the Gen Z. Clashes erupted, leading to violent crackdowns with water cannons, tear gas, rubber bullets, and reportedly live fire. The violence led to curfews, mass arrest, and the resignation of the Home Minister. Facing mounting pressure, the government reportedly rolled back the blanket ban. And the protesters? Corruption, nepotism, and nepo kid anger. This anger was vented out through social media platforms. So while the spark was the communication blackout, the fuel was far deeper: frustration over corruption, unemployment, and systematic inequality. Viral online campaigns exposed politicians' children studying and living abroad while local students struggled for opportunities. This narrative of Nepo kids struck a nerve and became a rallying cry for disillusioned youth. Student unions and youth groups joined forces, transforming the protest from a single issue fight into a broad movement demanding accountability, transparency, and reform. Security forces responded with heavy-handed tactics. Curfews were declared in multiple districts. The army is deployed to secure high-risk areas, and widespread arrest followed. Public outrage over the deaths forced the resignation of the Home Minister, while international pressure mounted for a transparent investigation. Human rights groups and press freedom organizations condemned the violence and warned that the crackdown was eroding democracy and civic trust. Now, why the ban triggered such an explosive reaction? Digital access is vital for Gen Z. For many young Nepalis, social media is central to work, activism, and daily life. The blackout was seen as silencing an entire generation. Accumulated grievances, of course, were there. Years of corruption scandals, nepotism, and a shrinking job market meant the ban was perceived as a deliberate attempt to silence criticism, to silence these young students. And there is, of course, the low trust in leadership. Nepali youth, increasingly distrustful of the political elite, saw the regulation as proof of an out of touch government prioritizing control over reform. The recent unrest in Nepal, triggered by the government's ban on several popular social media platforms, highlights a powerful generational shift in how young people perceive freedom, connectivity, and expression. What began as a policy decision to maintain public order quickly ignited a wave of protest led primarily by Gen Z students who see social media not just as entertainment but as a lifeline, a space for learning, activism, networking, and opportunity. The sheer scale of the demonstrations, with thousands taking to the streets, reflects both their deep digital dependency and their determination to defend the tools that shape their identity and future. So, this is not merely a protest about apps. It signals a deeper societal concern, a generation so intertwined with the digital world that cutting off social media feels like severing a basic right. The government's move has inadvertently spotlighted the growing divide between traditional power structures and a hyper-connected generation that measures its freedom and agency through its ability to share, organize, and mobilize online. The unrest has intensified and it no longer remains as Gen Z protest now. Protesters defying curfew have escalated actions, burning political leaders' residences and rejecting symbolic measures. They are calling for Prime Minister Oli's resignation. With mounting internal dissent, including from its own party's General Secretary Gagan Thapa, demands for the PM to step down have grown louder. So, within 48 hours, Nepal has witnessed the resignation of 3 high-profile ministers and the exodus of 21 opposition MPs from coalition support, markers of a political system under severe pressure. The resignation reflects serious fractures in government legitimacy, casting doubts on the coalition's future viability. Now, can we make comparisons to Sri Lanka and Bangladesh? A pattern emerging? The protest bears similarities to Sri Lanka's 2022 uprising and unrest in Bangladesh, where economic and political grievances converged into youth-led movements amplified by social media. Like those uprisings, Nepal's unrest grew from domestic frustrations rather than a single trigger. The unrest begins with anti-corruption sentiment, leading to a mass movement, no more leaving it just as a student protest. Are we witnessing some foreign influence here? While speculation exists about foreign involvement, there is no concrete evidence that the US or other external powers orchestrated these protests. Instead, local grievances, youth anger, and viral mobilization appear to be the primary drivers. However, the parallels raise important questions about regional instability and the vulnerability of South Asian democracies. Now we must ask, should governments prioritize regulation and national control over platforms at the cost of citizens' digital freedom? How can societies distinguish between legitimate anti-corruption campaigns online and viral misinformation? Can South Asian governments continue to ignore youth unemployment and inequality without risking political upheaval? Are these protests purely domestic, or do they signal larger geopolitical shifts in the region? What reforms would convince Nepalis that the government is serious about transparency and opportunity? Finally, at present, do we see a major change with Prime Minister Oli resigning, making the future unpredictable? Think about it. For more updates and insights, keep watching The Global Eye.